Like, one more thing we got to talk about from UFC 314, and that's the fact that UFC signed Patricio Pitbull, former Bellator champion. They signed him. He got his release from the PFL. He gets signed by the UFC, and they go ahead and they book him against Yair Rodriguez at UFC 314. I'm just going to come straight out and hit you with this, Mike. Yair Rodriguez is a perfect first test for Patricio Pitbull's debut.
Yeah, not an overreaction. I think what more could you ask for? A top 5 guy, dangerous on the feet, dangerous on the ground, a former interim featherweight champion as well in Yair Rodriguez. I mean, this is perfection, honestly. Like, what more could you want outside of maybe him walking straight into a title shot, which, given how good this division is right now, I don't think would have been warranted here. Sounds like the other options potentially on the table for this debut were Aljamain Sterling as one, Movsar Evloev as the other. If you compare this matchup to those two, I mean, what are you more excited for? It's not even a question, all respect to those guys, but like, I want to see Pitbull bang with someone and like give us a thriller in his first fight in the UFC, not have to spend the whole time defending takedowns or Aljamain Sterling's weird little side kicks and stuff like that. So this is the one that I love, and we're going to find out where is Pitbull at. And man, he wins this. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he gets a title fight the one after that.
I was going to ask you, man. I was going to ask you think that would be enough for him to get a title shot afterwards?
Like I said, all about the timing. It's possible. Like, if he wins this spectacularly and they're sitting there looking at him or Movsar to fight either Volkanovski or Diego, like, who do you think they're going to go with? And it seems like they like his mentality. I mean, Pitbull did an interview with Nolan King for our site the day after he signed, and he basically alluded to like they didn't want him to sign, and there was a very high-ranking member of the UFC brass, he wouldn't name who it was, who did not want.
He's got a chip on his shoulder, man. He's got a chip on his shoulder coming in.
Yeah, and then Dana said on Saturday that, like, you know, kind of reinforced that and said a phone call with Pitbull is what kind of changed things. So it's kind of reminiscent of the Michael Chandler story, right? Like, he's like, I got on the phone with this guy, I had some reservations, and just what he said and how he talked to me, it was convincing. And I think Pitbull brings that same mentality. He seemingly accepted every opponent, every date. He's willing to fight Yair in the main event, 5 rounds in Mexico City on like 8 weeks notice. Like, this guy's willing to do whatever. He has the mentality the UFC wants. So if he goes in there and handles his business in the cage, like, he'll be willing to do whatever. And I think they appreciate that, and they would allow him that type of opportunity.
Yeah, I love, I love the fact that Patricio is going to come into this with a chip on his shoulder. Like, I don't know, man. Like, the motivation will be there. I think.
Who do we think it was that didn't want him? Was it Dana, Mick, Hunter, or Sean?
It wasn't Dana. I don't think it was Dana or Hunter.
Sean, probably, because that's his division.
I think it was Sean. Yeah, I think it was Sean. One of the matchmakers. I think from a business standpoint, Dana and Hunter would see the value there, but from the matchup standpoint and matchmaking standpoint, it would have been Sean or Mick. Yeah, it would have been one of those two guys.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because Dana said at that same press conference that Sean absolutely loves Aaron Pico, and like, when he loves a guy that much, good things will happen for him. So
yeah, man,
that one's probably looming as well.
Do you think? Last thing, real quick. Do you think Patricio, does he need to validate himself with some success in this UFC run? Like, do you feel Michael Chandler has validated himself? Do you feel like Michael Page has validated himself? Right, these guys that come up from Bellator and these guys are coming over late. Does Patricio need to do something great, spectacular, at least fight for a title to validate his greatness? He's a great Bellator fighter,
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think he does actually, to a degree, because there has been people who have been out there saying this guy is the number one in the world. He said it for himself, when Volkanovski's champion, when Max Holloway's
chirped at each other. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he would always, say these things, but he never had the opportunity. Even Michael Chandler at his peak, right? Did we ever say like, this guy's going to beat Habib? He's going to beat, McGregor, when they were at their absolute peaks and he was over in Bellator? Like, I don't think people are saying those would be fun fights. Chandler's got the power, but like, no one's made that argument. No one said MVP is the best welterweight in the world, even despite all his success. Like, Pitbull's had that attached to him, and he's been, I think, number one in our MMA Junkie rankings multiple times. So like, he needs a little bit of that. If he comes over and loses to Yair and then loses to Arnold Allen and then, loses to some other person and that's it, and you're like, oh, was it maybe just too late? He's 37. did he have too many wars in Bellator? Those questions will be asked, but like he needs to win some fights. Does he need to get to the belt, win the belt? Maybe not. But if he has like a terrible run and fizzles out, then I think that will hurt his standing for sure.
Yeah. Well, regardless of what happens, I think he and Volk have to fight at some point before it's all said and done, because they were the concurrent champions at the same time. They did chirp with each other. Doesn't have to happen now. And who knows? Maybe it lines up where that's a title fight. You know, the pieces are there.
Could happen at UFC 314, where one injury from Diego Lopez.
Could be. Away. You're right, dude. It could happen at 314. You never know. Dana doesn't even want to talk about having a replacement, but that fight has to happen at some point. I can't wait to talk about it.
MMA Junkie AI.